what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to use this squaring block, which is a little bit thinner than this one, a little bit lighter. I'm going to use this one and I'm going to try to square this up with these two edges to these faces using this squaring block right here. And this one is pretty good. It's probably within a 1/10,000th of an inch within its entire range, I think, in its worst spot. The one we just finished actually was better than this, and I want this one to be as close to that. But I just want to show you the technique that you can use if you have a super good square block, that you can square things up real fast and simple. And I can get it as square, if I got a good grinder and use good techniques, I can get it pretty much as square as what I have on this. I will not finish this block with that. What I'll do is I'll get this super close for my rough grind, and it will save me a lot of work because it'll be so close, and I'll use the technique to get this in a lot more accurate that you saw in the first videos using the shims. But this is going to get me super close, and if things go real good, it may get one or two of the edges that are right on, and I might not even have to mess with that. So we'll see what happens. And so you want to make sure all the surfaces are clean. I also marked these two edges because I wanted to find the two edges that were as square as they could be. I used the Indy square over here, and basically actually I'll have to twist it up this way. Yeah, I don't know if you can get in there. See, I mean, it's really square. This edge and that edge is really square. And then going up with what we have already, you can see it's very square too. And the reason I'm doing that, I want the two squares because I'm going to rough grind this without using coolant and filling both of these with hose, knowing I may end up with a possible bow. But when I take this block off and grind the other two sides, I'll be using coolant. But this will establish a good surface and squareness, and like I say, it can save me a lot of work. Now these other two edges are out of square by just about 1/1000th. So it, for something that has been machined on the mill, went out, had the heat treat and the cryogenic process done on it, that thing came out really nice. It's like the other block, they all come back real nice. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get these mounted, and I'm going to mount it. I'm just going to find a hole in there that works good, and again, you want at least a 1/4 inch of engagement of your screws. And I'm just going to lightly snug that right now. I'm going to grab this 90°. And this block is heavier, but not by much, so a lot of times you got to watch it. See, I don't want to tip if you're not careful, so you always got to keep your hands on here. So basically what I'm trying to do is use this and just snug it up and roughly get it close that way. And if things are set good, this hole should line up. and I should be able to hold this now with 2 screws. So I'll snug that one up as well. And this side was out about a thou, so we might be off a little bit, but we'll see. Yeah, so I'm off a little bit. Again, it was kind of a hard block to hold. So need probably 2 people or 3 hands with something like this. I'm just gonna break that a little bit so that it can pivot. There, it looks like it's balanced out pretty good, and that way's pretty good, so let's just tighten them up at this point. And I just want them tight enough that I know it's not going to move on me. I don't have to reef them. And right there, I think we're looking good enough. And so now we'll go to the surface grinder. I already got the wheel dressed. I just have to set the height on everything. So I just touched off probably a few 10,000ths of an inch, just taking a guess. I set my block up this way, and as I come down, I'll be feeding across here. It's going to take longer to come that way, but if I set up the long way, the problem I'm going to have is heat, and heat's going to be my biggest enemy here. And if I had this turned 90 degrees and was grinding along this length, it gives a lot more time for that heat to build up. By grinding back and forth this way and taking bigger laps, what I can do is I can control the heat a whole lot more. And also, I believe my grinder does cut a little bit better this way than it does this way on the rollers. So we'll see what we end up with. Very light cut, and we'll just come across and see where it cleans up. I'm just going to go ahead and be quite aggressive with it at this point on the Y traverse. So you see we got us a little bit of a cleanup here and a little bit of a cleanup there, so it looked like the indication of getting that in was pretty good. I'm just going to go ahead and take 5 10,000ths. So now I'm just going to go ahead and take it back. And so you can see we less than 1,000, so we have a nice cleanup cut on that. And I know that that is a rough grind. I'm just going to ease it across right now to reset my digital zero. We'll go ahead and try to feed down about 50 millionths, and we'll see what it cleans up, if anything. Looks like we're touching a little bit here. just try to get maybe just hopefully less than 25 or 50 millionths. The digital has a 50 millionth resolution, and it hasn't changed on the digital, but I do know that I went down because I'm seeing sparks where I didn't see them before. So the digital, even though it has that kind of resolution, sometimes it will settle and sometimes you won't see the movement. And if you get used to using the digital and just putting enough pressure on the hand wheel so that you don't even see the resolution move on there, but yet you can get sparks like that, you know you're taking an extremely light cut. And when you're doing dry grinding and you're looking for precision, it's those real light cuts and blank passes that's really going to make a lot of difference. And so from here, and I can see the resolution just drop down the next 50 millionths. And that's kind of typical. And it may even bounce back. It's right at that point where it changes one way or the other. And so it may even change back to 50 millionths the other way before we're done. But what I'm going to do now, I got a nice cut, got a beautiful finish. I'm going to just blank pass this about 3 times. And on my finish, I'm going to definitely slow my Y traverse down so that again I can take care of any high points. I like to have that wheel hitting when I do my traverse and my blank passes. Like I say, that the wheel, even though you dress it, if you look under a high magnification, I mean, it would look very rough yet. So this is just one of those ways where what we're doing with the blank passes is just trying to take out all these high points that we may have missed in the traversing in the Y-axis here. I'm not worried about that little bit of ink that I see over there because again, it was kind of a rough grind when I inked it on, and so I know that's just sitting in the low spot. And this side's not finished. It will be touched off again. Right now I'm just trying to get this rough squared with the 2 surfaces that we ground already. Okay, what we'll do is we'll bring this over to the granite and check it, but there's 2 other forces that I'm fighting. This block is heavier than that, and so gravity itself, you can see on the granite, wanted to pull it over. So I got a force pulling that way. Plus, one thing I did, I got this adjusted so I can keep a big gap here, but there's still that magnetic force, there's probably some of that. So I have gravity and I have magnetic forces that's going to be wanting to pull this over. So we'll see if we can detect any of that when we go over to the granite. Okay, and this, I'm going to have to use 2 hands and try to keep that as flat on my measuring block as I can. So you can see we came out really nice and flat that way. And it looks like we come out really good. I was surprised it come out this good right off the bat. So let's go grind this side, and then we'll pull it off and we'll check and see how square and parallel everything came out. Yeah, I actually got the block set up wrong. I wanted to grind that side. I know this side is going to be about 1,000 out, but that's fine. It's going to have to get done anyhow. So anyhow, I'll probably be generating a little heat, but before I get to the real final finish here, I'm definitely going to want to take this and redress the wheel anyhow, and it'll give a chance for everything to cool down nice. So a little bit of a heavy touch off, and I don't know if that side would be high or low. I'm guessing that was probably the high side by about 1,000. Yeah, that was the high side. So we'll definitely have to let this cool down. I'm just going to run this back and forth and let the air circulating from that wheel just help dissipate any heat. Yeah, it's not real warm. You can tell it's a few degrees hotter than it was, but we want all that out because when that is in there, and then if we measure it, it's flat. Come back the next day, you measure it, it won't be flat. Yeah, I can already feel the difference. What I'm going to do now is just try to take about 1/10. And at 1/10 I should be seeing bigger sparks, but we had that, like I say, a little bit of heat in the part, and it cools down. So, and you can see it's getting heavier at this side. And even here, you can hear it hitting heavier, and you can actually see it where it's hitting heavier right here and lighter over here. And this is where the heat buildup would be, right in the middle. And so I can see the effects of the heat. I doubt that you're going to be able to see that on the camera. Basically, you can see where it's low in the middle, and it's hitting heavier on the sides, and it comes out. And so I can see that with the naked eye here, and sometimes it's hard to capture that on camera. So that was to be expected with a little bit of heat buildup. So we'll just try to take about another 1/10. Yeah, a little bit heavy. And I'm going to have to dress that wheel off because it's already grinding harder. I can just tell by the sound. What I'm actually going to do is back it up and try to hit the back side of the wheel. It'll probably be a fresher cut. See, it's taking stock off, but it's grinding a lot quieter. It's got a sharper cutting edge on that back side. It's still really good compared to the front side. I'm going to redress the wheel now. You can see I just barely touch right in that area. And so reset the digital at 0. And we'll just try to take less than 1/10,000th of an inch off per pass, and now see what we come up with. Right now that was about 50 millionths according to the digital. And again, that's the resolution I have, so it's somewhere in that ballpark. Nice thing about doing this and on the finish, you get a lot of air cooling on there, so any heat in the block gets taken out this way too. Yeah, we gained a little bit, but that just shows you the distortion that you get with the heat buildup in there. And that's one reason why doing this kind of grinding, you want to Take little bits off, blank pass, get it as flat as you can, redress it wheel, get it nice and sharp again, come back at it, light passes, blank passes, and multiple times of doing that, you can actually do some very accurate work that way, dry grinding. For a lot of the guys that have a surface grinder and you don't have a coolant system, this technique will work for you guys just as well. And again, heat is your biggest enemy here. Controlling that is going to be the key. And the key to controlling that is light cuts, blank passes, dressing often. And you can see we gained pretty good that time, and that was probably another just about a 50 millionths. So we actually cleaned up that end and come down the sides quite a ways. We still got this in the middle. The resolution didn't change any, but I'm seeing sparks. Yeah, and it's pulling most of that out now. Yeah, there's no heat in that at all. You barely see sparks coming off it. And you can see the ink disappearing on this side now. Okay, we'll bring it to the granite and see what we have. Okay, now we want to check this before we move it off, and we want to see how square it says. Sometimes it will move on you. And so we checked the original side, and you can see we're well within the 50 millionths there. And again, that's to this block. You got to be real gentle with just two screws holding. You can a little tap can move things out. So we're within about the 50 millionths on this side now too. It's a little more than the other. Probably just a little over. But it's going to get us close. So I'm going to pull this off and we'll see how it checks with the squareness gauge. Move this out of the way. Because I got two parallel surfaces right here, I'm going to set this gauge here first, and I can set, if this is a thou out, I can split the difference, and that's going to be really close to where it needs to be square. So I don't have to have something perfect square to actually set this with. Sometimes no fine adjust on here. It takes a little bit. We're setting 0. And we're setting at about 50 millionths on the 0 there. So it came out really square just off the block. There's, yeah, let me get a better feel for it here. Set this at 0. Yeah, we're about 1/10 total indicator reading, which means we're within 50 millionths square. I got 1/10 total. So I'm going to set my indicator so that it shows about 50 off of each side. Yeah, see, now that spot is actually checking right on about 50 millionths, so it actually even had a better check there. Okay, so I need to there's 0. Okay, so we're just a hair under 0. And now we're just a hair over 0. So 0 should be really close to being square. So we'll see how square it came out this way.
And we can't see the indicator from this point of view.
Oh, you can't see it?
Nope.
Okay, let's change the view here. How about now? Can you see it now?
Let me zoom in. And it's very blown out.
What's that?
It's very blown out with all the white.
Okay.
Let's see if I can change position.
We had to change the camera angle so that you can see. So I'm going to go back over here to just show you where we got 0. So we're at about minus 50 millionths. Pretty close, at least from my angle. It probably looks different from your angle. And there we got just about 0. So you're talking just off that cube that I had. This thing is square off the bottom this way, about 25 millionths. It varies a little bit because this surface is about 50 millionths out, so it varies where you hit it at. But I mean, that is so close it's not funny. So anyways, what it should be is about a minus 25 millionths roughly should be my 0 point. And so if I come over here, I gotta take my glasses off here. I'm getting right there, about a minus 50 millionths. So supposedly, just in a preliminary check, this side is actually within about 25 millionths. It's pretty good. And so we know that we're square really good here, and we know that we're square really good here. So now I'm going to set it on this surface and see if it verifies. See if we get the same thing. Yeah, and it's almost perfect, almost perfect. And we'll come over here and so we're off a little bit in this direction, and that'll be easy enough to straighten out using that shim technique, but this puts me so close. Let's see, oops, if I get out of the screw hole there, and then it'll work out a lot better. Yeah, okay, here we go. Yeah, so we're about 25 above, about 50 millionths above zero. Yeah, good 50. And we're about a tenth, 2/10 low. And not quite 2/10. So we're total indicator reading just a little over 2/10. So it's within about 1/10 square that way with that block. It's almost perfect square this way, and then this surface is almost perfect that way. And that was just setting up and grinding off my block, which I know was not as accurate as the block that we just sent out. So I knew that when it's flipped on one side, it was off a little bit. But almost all the work that you're going to have to do, at least that I do at my full-time job, I never have to have anything this close. But it's nice if I have my tools, if they're this close. That means anything I get off of them, if it indicates good and square like you just saw, it should be at least as square as what my block is. And if the block's out a little bit and you're out a little bit on the other surface, if it's the right direction, it will actually probably put it just spot on. So what we got to do next is we got to grind these two surfaces right here and here that are unground. And I'm just going to set them down on the magnet. I'm going to do this all off camera because it's just going to be boring for you guys. And I'm going to grind that. And then I'm going to try to correct that a little bit more, make it a little bit better, that 1/10 that I have, that I'm off over there. And I'll use that shim technique on that. And then what we'll do is we'll bring and show you the final results, checking it with the squareness checker. So we'll do that. It's getting late today, so we'll probably do that tomorrow. Now we have one more done, and so I have my settings set on 1/10 from 0 to 1, so each mark is 50 millionths. And what I'll do is I'll get that zeroed out. And so you can see we're well within the 50 millionths there. All the sides will go to that. Now if I go to this 10 micron, each of these marks over here now are about 19.6 millionths. So you can see it's really good. Come back over to the, well actually what we'll do now is we'll check the squareness. And I'll have to get this so Kathy, can you see the indicator over there?
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we're right at 0. And we're less than 50 millionths. That's total indicator reading, so it looks like we're within 25 millionths on the squareness that direction, and the other side was just as close as that. So now the squareness this way, right at 1/10. and we're just a little bit above 0. So we're less than 1/10,000th total indicator reading in squareness that way, which means we're within the 50 millionths on the squareness in that direction as well. So the method that I used a cube to grind this cube. It got me really close, and so I did use the step method to finish it up, but it did grind up faster. And the other thing that I did, I'll probably show in a future video on that step method. You saw how I was grinding a shim. I modified that a little bit, and what I would do is I would grind it flat, and then I would relieve this middle section a few tenths, 3 or 4 tenths, and then that way I'd have about an 1/8 inch strip here, 1/8 inch strip there, something like that, maybe 100 thousandths. And then that way I can grind just this a little bit in this, and then I can get that real micro fine adjustment for the shims when you grind them in, and that actually worked really nice. So in the process I actually modified what we did in the first video. It worked even nicer. It's really fast to grind stuff in, really close using that method. And again, using the cube to begin with, it got me so close it wasn't funny. In fact, the one side was so close I can't even remember if I even had to mess with that hardly at all. But anyways, these things come in handy for a lot of things. You'll see them in a lot of our videos. We got 6 more that are being made up, and I believe at least 3, maybe 4 of those are spoken for. There'll be 2 more that would be available if there's anybody interested. Just let us know, give us a shout. You can find the email to contact us with on the About page. So anyways, this will complete this video series. Thanks for watching.